Welcome to Algebra 1, Chapter 9, Section 3, Solving Quadratic Equations. Pause this video and do this review, and then check back to see how you did. In the multiple choice question, we are buying tickets at $45 each, and we want to find the cost, so we want to see what C equals for any number of tickets. That option is option A. What's the difference between a relation and a function? Well, a relation is any pairing of an input and an output, or of an x and y, whereas a function is a relationship where x only has one y, where an input only has one output. Our vocabulary word is root. A root is a solution of an equation in the form f of x equals 0. Remember, f of x is a way of saying y. The related function y equals f of x has a 0, and the graph of y equals f of x has an x-intercept. That's where y equals 0 for each root of the equation. So use this vocabulary and fill out the 4 questions at the bottom. Well, how did you do? If you have any questions, bring them to class tomorrow. This is a quadratic equation standard form. Using this form, we can determine the roots, or the zeros, of this equation. Again, a quadratic equation is an equation that can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now, it doesn't have to start in that form. It just has to be able to be written in that form. And I must say A, the coefficient of the x squared term cannot equal 0. This form is called the standard form of a quadratic equation. In the problem marked 7, cross out the 2 equations that are not in standard form. The only equation that is in standard form is x squared minus 81 equals 0. The other 2 are quadratic equations, but they are not yet in standard form. For the problem labeled 8, draw a line from each quadratic equation in column A to its equivalent in column B. Do you see the paragraph at the bottom? Highlight that paragraph. You can solve quadratic equations by a variety of methods. One way to solve a quadratic equation is to graph the related quadratic function, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. The solution are the x-intercepts. The 3 ways to solve quadratic equations is to graph, define the square roots, and factoring. The solutions of quadratic equations are called x-intercepts, typically when we're graphing, roots, when we're finding the square root of something, and zeros, for when we're factoring. In each case, they will be equivalent. When looking for solutions to the equation ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, you can look at the x-intercepts of the graph of the function y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Looking at x squared minus 16 equals 0, we can use a graph to determine the y-intercepts and thus the solutions. So we need to graph y equals x squared minus 16. Well, I know what y equals x squared looks like as a graph. What I need to do is to lower that so my vertex is at negative 16, and I know this by x squared minus 16. I can also determine this graph by setting up a table and plotting the points. If there is no linear term in a quadratic equation, you can solve it by taking a square root. Follow these steps to solve a quadratic equation with no linear term. You may also want to write these in your agenda to use as notes on your quiz. First, write the original equation. Then, isolate your squared term on one side of the equation. Then simply find the square roots and simplify. Here is one for you to simplify. Pause this video, work through this problem, including the written answer on the bottom, and then restart this video to see how you did. Let's see how you did. First, write the original equation. Subtract 15 from both sides to isolate the x squared term. Get the x squared by itself, so we're going to divide both sides by 3. And then find the square root to determine the solution. So does 3x squared plus 15 equals 0 have a real number solution? No, the square root of a negative number is not a real number. Here are 3 problems for you to do on your own, along with a lesson check. Bring any questions you have to class tomorrow.